Everybody, welcome to another week. I'm not the Perkins of electroastrology. We are continuing our talk about Vesta, the asteroid. And Vesta is a really multifaceted asteroid. Today, we're going to dive into some interesting subject matter, but I think you'll enjoy it. If you have missed Vesta, we've done one lesson. You can catch that. It's under Astrology for Awakening on YouTube. And if you're listening on the podcast, hello and welcome. This will be followed by an astrological forecast for the week. And if you're watching on YouTube, that astrological forecast will be released as the path ahead on Monday. Either way, we're still in the midst of some wild astrology. It's really not going to end through 2025, but it is an adventure. And I want to invite you to my Astro cohort. We begin on February 2nd. This is where we're going to be gathering to learn astrology. I'm going to be teaching you how to understand astrology so that you can understand your own chart. But we're going to be going into the nuance and the layers of all of this psychological, spiritual transformation that we are seeing out there in the world, and we are most definitely experiencing inside. It's going to be a great class. And these kind of classes where we have a group of people, we create a certain kind of alchemy and magic, because it's not just a bunch of novices that are coming together. It's some really powerful people in their own right who have already signed up. So if you want to be a part of this, go to electroastrology.com and you can read more about it. All right, so let's talk about Vesta. If you missed last week, we talked about Vesta and that sacred flame. And we use that as a metaphor for tending to your own sacred flame, for going within, for spending time alone and coming to know yourself while being alone and not being so immersed in all of the incoming information and all of the mental chatter that we all engage in. It's really seductive and doesn't really do anything for us. It kind of keeps us distracted and keeps us anxious. And so as we're working with Vesta, and you can look at where Vesta lands in your chart for some insight into, where are you supposed to be really tending to the sacred flame? In my last episode on Vesta, I will probably go through all of the houses and signs to give you some insight into what it looks like. But in the meantime, Google is your friend on that, or you can schedule a reading with me. But if you remember, in the mythology, Vesta was virginal. At least one of the versions of Vesta was very virginal, and it was required that if you were going to be a Vestal virgin or one of these priestesses that was guarding the flames of the temples in Rome, that you absolutely were not allowed to have sexual relations. Otherwise, you would get buried alive. The punishment was huge. Now, today, what I want to talk about is the archetype of the Virgin. Now, Virgo is also the Virgin in the signs in astrology. And virginity is a symbol of autonomy. It's a symbol of purity when we are not engaging in this seductive, flirtatious, putting our attention outside of us, trying to get something from a partner or feeling like there's a part of us that's missing that can only be found with another. We do have this self-sovereignty that can happen. And in a way, it keeps us spiritually and psychologically undistracted. So it's not that we can go through our lives pure, not in relationship, alone, because that's not really the point. It is for some people, but that's not the point for all of us. We are in relationship. And in fact, we're in relationship with so many different things, with people, with our phones, with the information that comes in, with our belief systems, with our history. We're in relationship with all of these different things that kind of want our attention. They're competing for us to give them our love, our affection, our attention. It can be very draining. And so when we're looking at this archetype, we're saying, how can I come closer to myself? And we also say that coming closer to ourselves is a version of coming closer to higher power or to God. And moving into 2025, we're seeing this so much more clearly. And if you aren't, it's time to start looking at this as something that is happening. And the importance, especially with North Node in the sign of Pisces, as it is now, where we have to come closer to ourselves. It is less about what's out there and what is distracting and what we're supposed to be making a lot of money to buy and how we're supposed to be getting a bunch of fame and popularity so that we're validated. This is a time period where the closer we are with ourselves, the more that we can follow our own intuitive guidance. We can trust our gut. If you are somebody that knows about human design, you know that we all have something that is there in the mix helping us to make decisions. Whether you are an emotional decision maker, a splenic, meaning you're following your instinct, a sacral, meaning you're following your gut, all of these different ways of having to decide what is right for us. And those are questions that are really important. Those are things that you should know about yourself. And we know that when we are the ones that are taking the responsibility for ourselves, we are the ones that are in charge of our experience, as we've been talking about through Capricorn season, through Pluto moving into Aquarius. All these questions about authority are up in the field. And we know that ultimately we can't put our trust in some sort of governing body that is outside of us, that it has to come from inside. And part of that is cultivating a strong relationship with your higher power, the ultimate source, and also cultivating a really strong relationship with your inner decision maker. And in order to be connected with that inner decision maker, you have to be quiet. You have to maintain integrity and protect your sacred energy. We talked about tending that inner flame last time, and we're just elaborating on that a little bit. So go ahead and take a deep breath and just tune in to what it feels like in your body right now. And what is it like for you in your nervous system? Does it feel activated? And here's a good question for you. Where does your nervous system reside? For some of us, it can feel like it resides in our solar plexus. For some of us, it feels like our gut. For some, it feels like our head. And so if you don't know your human design authority, and that is that inner decision-making style, this would be a good thing to look up. You can find your human design on any free website, because the more that you are aware of the style of your intuitive nature, the better. So that when you are tending this sacred flame and you are keeping yourself distant from all of this distraction, then you're able to hear it when that decision maker comes in and says, here's what I think, or here's what I feel, or here's what I know. Then you can listen. Then you can actually hear it. And part of hearing it is understanding where your nervous system tends to reside in your body. Where are you getting your clues and information from? Where do you feel that contraction of anxiety? Where do you feel that yes, when you get a definite yes, and you know you're supposed to be moving forward? So this Vesta work is really subtle work. It's where we are moving into our internal temple. We are quieting down. We are keeping distractions and seductions, desires. We're keeping those at bay for now so that we can hear the calling, can commune with our higher self, with our source connection, and get the answer. I know so many people when I'm doing readings, and I will say, in your chart, you have markers of somebody that is highly intuitive. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of how that flows through? And some people would say, well, kind of, but not really. And then I'll ask further questions. Are you really busy? Do you feel obligated to do things? And remember, we're tuning back into Virgo here because Virgo is so connected to this archetype as well. And they will say, yes, I'm very busy. I'm very obligated. So we want to be monitoring that. And that is part of having the South Node in Virgo, is that now we are looking at having to really consciously get out of that part of ourselves that just wants to go, go, go. We're either distracting ourselves with information, We're distracting ourselves with doing. We're distracting with flirtation, with a desire to succeed or a desire to feel popular, like whatever the distractions are. We're no longer in a period where we can just allow those distractions to carry us away. Now is where it's so important to dedicate yourself to yourself, to say, I want to tune in. I want to connect with the deeper aspects of myself. I want to understand the nature of this world, of this human experience, of this earth. I want to understand it on a deeper level. But in order to do that, I first have to quiet. I have to retreat inward and I have to connect with myself. And in connecting with myself, I'm also connecting in with that conduit, that source energy that is bringing me the answers that I am so wanting. So often we go looking for answers in books or with teachers, or we're trying to pull those answers out of our mind. But this is a time where we know that those answers are coming from the dynamic field of awareness. But in order to tap into that awareness, we have to quiet. And so this week, as you're thinking about these things, be thinking about where you get the most distracted, the things that feel the most seductive, the things that generate that sense of excitement. You know, when we have a lover or we're having a flirtation with somebody or we're feeling valued and validated because somebody else is reflecting our beauty and our amazingness back to us. I mean, that feels good, but it's very distracting. It's like our whole focus and attention diverts to that person. I want more, and trying to get more of their reflection. And so this is a potent time to distance yourself from some of those things that are distracting. And it might not be a lover. It might be trying to make money. It might be shopping for something. It might be the overthinking about the future. When you understand what distracts you, and understanding, as we talked about last time, and it's not that we'll get literally buried alive, but we understand when we get distracted, it pulls us away from our sacred flame. It pulls us away from ourselves. And then when we wake up from the distraction and we come back and we realize, oh, I wasn't here. I lost touch. I fell asleep. I wasn't conscious. It can bring about a sense of emptiness. And we know that that emptiness is very painful. So this is a good week to get clear on what distracts you the most, on what pulls you away from yourself. And it might be a good time to think about some boundaries for yourself. And sometimes these boundaries can be as simple as I'm going to have a practice of spending 5 minutes before I get out of bed, taking deep breaths and being with myself. You can also do that right before you go to bed. You might also have a journaling practice where you write a few lines every day, or you pull a card for yourself, or you take yourself on a walk without any distractions, without any noise or music or words coming into your ears. The question is, how are you going to set yourself up so that you are visiting that temple every day? So that you are cultivating a sense of sacred stillness to get the answers, to strengthen that conduit, and to keep that inner flame burning. All right, some big questions. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you all next week.